Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news. And I went a bit high, I felt like I was having a poo. Hello everybody. I needed to get off that, whatever they call it. Anyway, lots to talk about this morning. We're going to be talking about Anthony Martial. Lots of false reports from people out saying that he's staying at Manchester United. That is not categorically true. We'll talk about that because developments are still going on with Anthony Martial. So we basically had some good info coming in this morning around Anthony Martial. Also, Scalvini, what's happening with him? We can tell you what's happening with that and how interested Manchester United actually are. MALEN of Dortmund, we'll be talking about when he's coming to Manchester United. Also, interestingly, I've been trying to bring this into the last couple of shows, but they've been so good. Last night's show was so good. We've not actually had the chance to speak about this, which has actually worked out quite well, because what is Ineos and Sir Jim Radcliffe's stance on Mason Greenwood? And is it in contrast to Ten Hag, who, reading between the lines, many people feel that Ten Hag wants Mason Greenwood back and wanted him back in the summer. Now, I've got to admit, that sort of bubbles up a little bit of frustration inside me, and I'll explain that why. There is this feeling around Ten Hag at the moment about who is he? Is he a Manchester United manager? Does he actually listen to the fans? Is he very stubborn? And there was a lot of strong feeling about why Greenwood shouldn't play for Man United in the summer, and many of us felt that at the very least he should be loaned out, and yet we've got a manager that wanted to bring him back. Is that just a... I'm not saying he's wrong to bring Greenwood back, because some of you wanted Greenwood back, but does it yet again show how out of touch he is at being a Manchester United manager, that he can't put his finger on the pulse and test the water? We'll talk about that as well. Also, what else? The CEO situation. Want to have a little bit of a chat about that. Ineos will have a say, but they won't have the final say. Billy Robinson, do a Mason Greenwood poll? No, because that's not the point of the show, mate. I understand we've had this millions of times. I know that some people want Mason Greenwood back, and I know some people don't. We're not doing a poll on it because it's not happening in January. We can discuss that in the summer, but we will talk about the Mason Greenwood scenario in relation to what Ten Hag and Ineos think, because that's a bit of news. I'm not actually interested in whether you want him back or not, because we have got no say in January, but we will talk about it as a news segment, and we may well do other polls. Right, let's fly into it. So first of all, the real story I want to talk about is Anthony Martial. Lots of people this morning, I would describe slow sports news. They're very critical of the United Stand and how it's clickbait, which it's not, because it's funny how it's clickbait, but we get loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of news that actually no one else gets, and we get it very, very quickly. But we are a news show, so sometimes there will be items that we talk about that's in the news that ends up being total shit. Yesterday... and for the last 2 days, the Martial story has been really conflicting. He's staying and he's going to run his contract down. He's in talks with other clubs in Europe. What we know is, from Turkish reports, is they're saying it's very, very close. But you can take Turkish reports like you can take Portuguese reports and Italian reports. Occasionally they're right, a lot they're bullshit. So I wouldn't be going to town on Martial to Turkey reports, it's definitely going to happen. But I certainly wouldn't take certain outlets' news that Martial's definitely staying as set in stone. What we were told this morning is that it's the 11th of January. There are 20 days left, 3 weeks left in this transfer window. Erik Ten Hag is refusing to pick Martial, and he's able to play. He has been ill, but he hasn't been ill for a month. He could be playing in the FA Cup. He could be playing against Spurs. He could have played the game before that as well. He's not picking him because the expectation is he's going to leave. Martial has the power and can sit there and run his contract down. But if something falls into his lap that suits him, he will leave. There's even talk that Martial would like to try and get into the French Euro squad, which seems ridiculous. I think I've got a better chance of getting in the French Euro squad, and I'm not even French. But apparently that is a consideration for Martial. What I was told this morning is that what we've got here is basically negotiation. Martial doesn't want to leave in January and damage the fact that he could make a lot of money in the summer when he's free. He also doesn't want to leave in January and make a lot of money for Manchester United. What he wants to do is something that suits him in relation to going to a club that he may want to stay at in January, in the summer, but also where he can earn some decent money and put himself in the spotlight for a move in the summer where United will make no money because he'll be out of contract. So I think what we've got here at the end of the day is a scenario where you will be removed, you know, if you start being abusive. I don't know why you think we haven't got moderators. Just some twat in the chat. You get them every now and again. Look, he's still trying to chat. You've been hidden, mates. It says hidden by United Stand. Bye-bye. Go and annoy someone else. Twat. Anyway, it's Thursday, isn't it? We're in London, aren't we? But look, with Martial, I think that too many people are saying he's definitely going to stay. Logically, you could jump on that. You could get really aggravated. You could start moaning. And, you know, I suppose we did that a little bit yesterday when Sky Sports said it. But you go with the news, you go with the story. And the bottom line is Manchester United desperately want to remove Martial this window. Ten Hag desperately wants to move Martial this window. And Martial will do what's best for him. You can't rule out the fact that he will stay, but there is a long way to go in this January transfer window, and there are a lot of conversations ongoing. And what I was told this morning is that actually it's not in Martial's benefit, really, to sit on his arse for 5 months. He won't be going to the Euros. Yes, he'll earn 250 grand a week, but he'll earn that anyway. If he goes to Fenerbahce and they can only pay 100 grand, Man United will be topping it up anyway. So he's going to earn his wage. That's going to happen because ultimately what he can say is, I'll go to Fenerbahce, but I'm not taking a pay cut. I'll sit on my arse and take 250 grand a week, or you can supplement my wages in Fenerbahce. So Martial's just doing what I would do. He's doing what you would do. Obviously, I wouldn't do it because I love Manchester United, but you know what I mean? As a professional footballer at a football club that is atrocious, you would do what's best for you. You would. So I haven't got a problem with Martial here. I fully expect him to leave. And I think people saying he's going to stay and everything like that, they're probably operating off the news that came from yesterday from Sky. As it is now, United are not expecting him to stay. They're working on an exit deal. It's negotiation tactics. There's 3 weeks left in the window. Martial knows that, you know, realistically he needs to be playing, and it's about getting the right move. What I was told this morning is that the story that Martial's going to stay and run his contract down is really just a harsh negotiation tactic to let Manchester United know that he can do that if he wants to do that. So expect that to develop. It might run right until the end of the window. I mean, hopefully it will run quicker than that because, of course, once Martial leaves, we can then bring in the loanee striker that we're going to bring in, which I'll talk about who that is in a minute. But yeah, we can't do that until Martial it leaves. But I wouldn't get too dramatic about he's definitely staying because that's not set in stone. Obviously, if he did end up staying, you know, you've got to implement him back into the team as well. Paul Thompson, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. Get your badge in there. And Ian Hobbs has been a member for 19 months. He says, morning, Mark. It shows the mentality of the players that would rather sit and rot rather than play too many of these players at this club. Well, Ian, as I said, I think these stories are somewhat irresponsible, actually, because it just... If Martial played against Spurs at the weekend, he'd be booed. And he'd be booed because of the context of some of these stories saying that he refuses to leave and he's going to run his contract down. But if you're a player for Manchester United, it's the Glazers that own Manchester United, not us. I think in these situations, when a player doesn't want to play for the team and they're down tools, they're damaging the fans. When a player says, I'm going to run my contract down because I've got a contract, they're not really damaging the fans. They are making the Glazers stand by a contract they never should have done. And I find it difficult to get angry at Ander Herrera or Anthony Martial or Jesse Lingard or any other player that runs their contract down because we get pissed off because they won't go. But if you sign a 3-year contract on 250 grand a week, when you sign that contract, you've got every right to think for the next 3 years you're going to earn 250k a week. Why after 2.5 years should you reduce that down to 100k? It's like Harry Maguire in the summer. I desperately wanted Maguire to go to West Ham. At that point, I desperately wanted him to go. But and I remember getting angry saying, "Oh, we should just go and play first team football. You know, I don't care. Take a pay cut, go." But you know, when you think about it and you take the emotion out of it, why should Harry Maguire, who's on 200 grand a week, go and play for West Ham for 100k a week when he's got 2 years left on his contract at double the money? Manchester United, absolutely, if they want him to go, should have paid his contract off, and they didn't, so he stayed. And I actually agree with that from Maguire. At the time I didn't, because you just want him to go. But actually, the contract's there, he signed it. So, yeah, I think with Martial, though, just to summarise that, yeah, don't believe all the stories that he's staying. Whilst that is possible, because it's always possible, there are a lot of conversations ongoing. It's a negotiation tactic from Martial to just say, look, I'm not being forced out anywhere. If I'm going anywhere, I'm going to go where I want to go. I want my wages covering, and we'll negotiate from that point. So what I'm told is there's a lot of conversations going on with Martial's representatives in a number of countries to see what suits him. Because obviously Anthony Martial knows if he has been fit this season, if he goes somewhere and starts scoring goals, it might draw attention from is Deschamps still the coach at France? But it might draw the attention of the French coach for the Euros. It also might prick up a few ears from other clubs that go, oh, you're a free agent in the summer. Here's 20 million quid. Come and play for us. Morning, Mark. Is Frimpong not an option? Could be half decent loan for both parties, says Viking Steve. I don't think Frimpong's available as a loan, and as I understand it, Manchester United are absolutely categorically not looking for a right back in the January transfer window. Ryu says, any incoming news? Yes, 2 stories. So, same source I was talking about Martial this morning. Daniel MALEN at Dortmund is now the #1 target for Manchester United. Now, don't get too excited. We'll probably finish this stream and he'll be signing for Everton. This is exactly what happened with Werner. Werner was Man United's #1 target to bring in, and he ended up going to Spurs. So the problem is most people know what United are looking at, and United are slow. So some clubs will just swoop in. MALEN is #2. Werner was #1, and he's gone. He will be playing at Old Trafford on Sunday, but for Spurs. So now it's MALEN. Obviously, we've done a lot of groundwork on MALEN, I'm told, because Sancho is obviously is landed in Germany today. That's deal done. So we've done a lot of discussions with MALEN, and it's a deal that is there to be done. Good relationships with Dortmund. I mean, one thing I will say about Manchester United is we've definitely got good relationships with Dortmund. I mean, we gave them £75 million for a player, and we've just given him back for free, so for 6 months. So they love us in Dortmund, and they'll be more than happy to loan MALEN. And look, for Dortmund, it's a clever move. They want to remove MALEN. They want to put him in the shop window. If he comes to Manchester United, biggest league in the world, does okay, they get some money. So that's the angle for Dortmund. For Manchester United, they need a striker. He is now the #2 choice. The thing about MALEN is he's very different to, he's very different to a traditional striker. He can play across the front 3 positions, but he's very different. So that's where I expect Manchester United to go. But they've got that. But actually, yes, they do still have to remove. They still do have to remove Anthony Martial. Hey, Mark, Happy New Year, mate. Could you give my hair transplant TikTok a shout out? Helping men regain confidence. Hairy by MK, says Matt Key. Okay. Well, you've just given it a shout out yourself. Thanks very much for the super chat. Dortmund are the richest club in Germany, says Ladios. Don't know what that means. They're trying to sell a player. MALEN's not Manchester United material, says Steve-O. MALEN is rubbish, says Ejaz. And United love an Igalo deal. Why do we do this bullshit, says Krish. Well, I think, look, I haven't passed judgment on MALEN. I mean, yeah, it's Fred says MALEN needed too much time to adapt to the Bundesliga. How do we see him succeeding on loan in the biggest league, says Fred. Look, MALEN at PSV looked very exciting, didn't he? But in the German league, he's not really adapted that well. I also think that it's a risk taking him to the Premier League, and it's another Dutch player, of course. But that's who Manchester United are looking at the moment. They may shift, but the work's been done with Dortmund. They're trying to move Martial, and I expect that's where Manchester United will move next. Other options on strikers, unless there's something really shocking, which I don't think there is, you've got to stick with the... and this wasn't who I was talking to this morning, but if you think about what Fabrizio said on the show a couple of times already recently, United have held talks with Timo Werner's representatives, MALEN's representatives, and Guirassi's representatives, and they've also had a quick look at Choupo-Moting. I don't see us going beyond those 4 players. I really don't. Well, Werner's gone. Guirassi's going to cost you money. So that leaves MALEN or Choupo-Moting. Choupo-Moting's 34. So, yeah, that I think if he goes, that's where he'll end up. Do you think all these incoming and outgoing deals will be completed after the new CEO and sporting director are announced, says Soham. Do you think all these incoming and outgoing deals will... No. Well, we've already announced... we've already announced that we've got Sancho leaving. So, no, I don't think we'll... I don't think... The CEO and director of football may not get announced till February, in which case the... sorry, let me just send this WhatsApp. If Sancho was problematic, why would they want him? Says International 2675. Does anyone else want to answer that? I mean, what are you talking about? Right, Jadon Sancho put a tweet out disrespecting the club. It's there. It's been deleted now, but it's there. Jadon Sancho's been late for training numerous times. Dortmund want to take him on loan. What are you saying? That the tweets and the lateness don't exist because Dortmund want to take him on loan? Maybe Dortmund want to take him on loan because he was at Dortmund before and did really well, and they want, you know, he's good in the Bundesliga. I don't think there's any. I don't know what you're trying to say. That why would Dortmund take Sancho? He's clearly not problematic. I don't. Like, we know there's been problems, and we know he was good at Dortmund. Maybe Dortmund think, well, we can deal with the problems because he's good for Bundesliga. The Bundesliga is shit, basically. There's 5 or 6 teams in the Bundesliga that make it competitive, and the rest of them are total horseshit. So that's why you can stat pad in that league. What about Harry Kane on loan, says Robert McCormack? Yeah, he ain't going to do that, is he? Let's just go for Benzema, says Stuart. The Benzema story's funny. The Benzema story reminds me of the Harry Kane story. Like, you know, you turn the telly on every now and again and there's an ex-player saying, they should have just bought Kane. Well, we couldn't buy Kane. That's probably why you sat being a pundit and you're not a manager, because we couldn't buy Harry Kane. And whilst as football fans, we must always have a wide range of opinions, we can also class some opinions as stupid and some as intelligent, and we couldn't buy Harry Kane. He was never going to be sold to a Premier League club by Spurs. So anybody who ever says we should have bought Kane, you know, I almost want to leave the room, because I'm like, I'm not going to get a good football conversation out of them. And it's the same with Benzema. I don't know where the Benzema story is coming from. He's not leaving the Saudi League in January. There is this assumption that the Saudi League is just going to wake up on January the 1st and say, let's loan off all our players that we pay ridiculous money to. Benzema could be on £1 million a week. Why would the Saudi League say, yeah, he's on £1 million a week, let's loan him to Manchester United and we'll pay for it? Their league is still being played. I don't know why people think the Saudi League is suddenly going to chuck all their best players into the Premier League in the January transfer window. They've still got a league ongoing. They're still on massive wages. There may be 1 or 2 that are beneficial to the Saudi League that they might want to send to Newcastle, but I don't know. I don't understand where this Benzema stuff really even comes from logically. Helg says, related to what you said yesterday evening, Mark, about Bruno and chance creation, how are we in the bottom of the Premier League of XG and shots on target if he's creating a lot of chances? Well, I think we've sort of established that, mate. As I said, against Bournemouth, apparently he created a load of chances, but I can't see those chances, so I don't know what chance creation actually means. Malen needed to. We've done that one. We've done that one. We've done that one as well. Okay, right, we're caught up there. So Malen looks like he will be the player that Man United bring in if they offload Martial. Scalvini at Atalanta. Good update on that. Same source as the Martial story, so figure out where it's coming from. Scalvini is a player that Man United hold an interest in, but there are no advanced talks to sign him at this moment, and certainly won't be in January. So I think with Scalvini at Atalanta, what you could have there, and this is more of a summer target conversation that we talk about. Remember, there's sort of like, is it 3, 4, 5 scenarios when Man United get linked to a player? 1, club want to sell him, so use Manchester United as a way to, generate interest. 2, Man United genuinely do want to sign him, so that's why the interest there. 3, players looking for a new contract, so use Manchester United as a way to get negotiations going. Or 4, players looking for a move. So you use Manchester United as a way to get them going. So in relation to Scalvini, it very much is going to be one of those scenarios. I would expect Man United are definitely scouting him. He may well be on their list of targets for the summer. But United aren't going to go and buy Scalvini and Branthwaite in the summer. They're not going to go and buy 2 centre-backs, I don't think. I think we will buy 2 centre-backs. I think it'll be Todibo and one other. So, yeah, Scalvini's not a player that's going to be coming in January. And what I was told is that the interest around Scalvini is very much being overhyped for some reason because he won't be moving in January. Atalanta have got no appetite for that. And maybe it's just a case of building up a player for an auction in the summer. It's only January. And when you're talking about a summer transfer window in January, that's 5 months to really build up a lot of interest. And we've seen this in the past, haven't we? We've seen it with Upamecano. We've seen it with De Ligt as well. So yeah, just be wary of that. It's certainly not something that is advanced. Sick of a certain channel and the people on it saying we should have signed Kane. They still say it now. Knobhead, says John. Don't know what you're talking about, John. Respect other content creators. It's a hard world. Malen won't be able to adjust, says Reese. And Soren says, Mark, thank you and the United Stand for creating a community we can all actively be part of. The shows of the highlight of my day. So Soren, thank you very much. Look, I don't care who it is that talks about Kane, but it's, you know, I know Robert's in the chat and I know he loves Harry Kane, but even he would admit we couldn't sign Harry Kane because Spurs wouldn't have let it happen. So we had more chance of signing Declan Rice than Harry Kane, and we couldn't sign Declan Rice because we didn't have 100 million quid. We actually did hold talks with Declan Rice. We didn't hold talks with Harry Kane other than, you know, we may have held talks with Harry Kane, but we didn't get anywhere near Spurs because they were like, no. With regards to Declan Rice, West Ham were open to selling to us. We had conversations with Declan Rice, but we never progressed them because we didn't have the money. So there was a better chance of us signing Declan Rice than there was of Harry Kane. A lot better chance, but we just didn't have the money for it. There was no chance of Harry Kane. And United backed out of it very, very quickly when they knew that they didn't have a chance. Hi, Mark. Is United bringing back Alvaro Fernandez back? I really, really want him at Benfica, says Duarte. Well, Alvaro Fernandez is another player like Hannibal Mabry, like Pellistri. This is going to be another way of Ineos raising money, subtly raising money. They are going to use people like Fernandez, Mabry and Pellistri that other clubs in Europe look at and go, there's talent there. They're going to loan them off with options to buy and they're going to raise 30, 40 million quid from it. Keep your eye on that. It's a very subtle way of removing potential players that could have had a future at United, but cashing in on them subtly to raise money to allow them to bring other players in. Now, there might not be a problem with that, but my concern is that we might just ship out a couple of players that maybe could have been part of our future. I don't mind us doing that if we remove the deadwood, but if you remove the likes of Alvaro Fernandez, Hannibal Mabry, Pellistri, and keep the likes of McTominay, that doesn't make sense to me. You know, cash in on him as well. That's what needs to happen. I like Alvaro Fernandez. I agree with Rudrish. He says Alvaro Fernandez will be our mistake, a big, big mistake. Well, he was my breakthrough player of this year. You know, my outsider breakthrough of the player of the year. But obviously, he got loaned off. But I think there's a player there. I really, really do. But you know, I think there's a player there with Pellistri, and you get a lot of criticism for saying that. Anyway. Let's move on. Let's talk about the CEO situation. I think that's on the list, isn't it? Yeah, Scalvini. We're going to talk about Greenwood in a moment. Spoken about that. Okay, so the CEO situation, as boring as it might be to some, it's actually the most pivotal position at the football club. As we've seen over the last decade, Ed Woodward presided over a steaming, festering turd of a football club in the way that he run it. And ultimately, the CEO is the guy that runs Manchester United, the chief executive officer, basically runs Manchester United. You look at that Mason Greenwood scenario in the summer that we're going to talk about. Last summer, it was Richard Arnold who decided we were going to keep him and then had to backtrack when all the backlash came out. So the CEO of Manchester United will take information from many different areas, including the Glazers, but ultimately they're the face and they are the pinnacle of Manchester United. They are paid to run Manchester United. That is their job. Richard Arnold had it last. We've got an interim at the moment. We are looking to appoint a new one. Obviously, as we said last night, the footballing side is being run by Ineos, but that's not the football club. That's the footballing side. The football club is the 100%. Ineos have got the 25%. So the Glazers appoint the CEO. Now, more news coming out. Ineos will have 2 members on the board of Manchester United. They will have a say, but they will not have a final say on who the CEO is. The Glazers will have a final say on who the CEO is. So Ineos will have an input, but the Glazers will have a final say. What does that mean? It means that hopefully, because it's early days, there is no cracks in the relationship between the Glazers and Sir Jim. As it's early days, you would hope they're sat there, you know, arm round each other, having a pint maybe, wanting to work together, and therefore they'll sit down and go, this guy's good, yeah, I agree, and then we will get somebody that's suitable. If there are power struggles already, which I wouldn't hope there would be, then the Glazers have got the right to say, no, we want this person. So we'll have to wait and see who it's going to be. For me, I just really hope it's going to be somebody with a footballing background. You know, that's what I want. I want a football CEO. Richard Arnold and Ed Woodward were formerly colleagues, I think. I think they went to college together. I'm not too sure, but they were certainly involved in the the purchase of Manchester United for the Glazers, and that's why they ended up being CEO. We want to go out there and recruit the best CEO we can, who knows how to run a football club. There's plenty of them out there. That's what we need to do. God, cough. Robert McCormack says, I'm honestly not bothered. Don't sign anyone. What's wrong with you, Robert? And Diego says, Mark, no European football next season will deepen the financial crisis to worrying levels. We need to be okay with going into next season with an even weaker squad. Well, look, I mean, we've got Spurs at the weekend. That has to be the start of something. We certainly need to win. I'm doing the preview at 8 o'clock tonight, actually. But I absolutely... Well, Fabrizio said it on Monday, but I completely agree with him, and it's been my stance, and I'm sure your stance for a long time. Manchester United absolutely need to sign, need to be in Europe. We have to be in Europe. Fabrizio said it. If you're looking at your transfer budgets, you're looking at about your progress. If Manchester United are not in Europe next season, then they're going to be in really big problems. And when we talk about Europe as well, we're talking about the Champions League. I still think, and I've not heard this from anybody, this is just complete and utter opinion, but I still think that Manchester United, Ineos, the Glazers, Sir Jim, whatever you want to call it, will frown very badly on Man United not getting in the Champions League. I actually think that the point where we can't qualify for the Champions League, whether that's March, April, whenever, when that actually is mathematically not possible, we could have a David Moyes moment. I don't think they'd sack him in March, but I think they might make a decision and go, right, this ain't the guy. I still think that's a massive, massive point in the season. I can sit here and tell you we're not getting Champions League football right now, but I can't mathematically tell you that, and the club don't mathematically know that. I think if he doesn't get Champions League football, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem, and it's going to weaken his position a lot. So, look, that's a watch this space. It might not happen. You know, if United get their players back and we start playing well, and look, Mainu's playing well, Garnacho's playing well, you get Martinez back, you get Maguire back, you get Casemiro back, you get Mount back, you know, you get options back, you get Luke Shaw back. Options isn't a player, by the way, I'm talking about options. You get all those players back, and I think Manchester United could start winning games of football again. I certainly think we'll have a better second half to the season than the first half of the season if we can avoid injury. But I can't see Chelsea getting anywhere near top 4. I really, really can't. And I don't think it's possible, and I don't know what you lot think, I don't think it's possible in this league at the moment to put a run together. I think the league is too competitive. And I'll bring the league table up here. I think the league is way too competitive. We are 8th place, and we are basically, I would say, 9 points off 4th place. You could even say 11, because I don't see. People say, well, you're 9 points off Arsenal, but Villa are the team I'm looking at. It's Villa or Spurs for fourth. It's not Man City or Arsenal for fourth. So I'm looking at Villa, and they're 11 points ahead of us. So let's split the difference. I think there's a 10-point gap to fourth place, and I don't see how you can go on a run, because to go on a run, you've got to go and win 8 games in a row really to have a chance. Well, all right, you might beat Sheffield United, you might beat Palace, you might beat Luton, but at some point you're gonna, on that 8-winning run, you're gonna have to beat a Brighton, you're gonna have to beat a Tottenham, you're gonna have to beat a Villa. So I just don't think we're gonna get top 4, but it's not off the cards yet. But when it is off the cards, I think it becomes a problem, and I think that no European football, he'll be sacked. No Champions League football, his head will be on the chopping block. He might survive, but no European football would be catastrophic. He'd be gone. He'd be gone. But we're still in the FA Cup, and we're not far off 6th. So, look, we can still get 6th, and that would get us Europa League, I think. So, there's still a lot to fight for. But we need European football. It's like when we got knocked out, like we're not playing European football in February. And a lot of people were like, and I don't understand this. For me, this is, this is the Harry Kane thing again. The amount of people who were saying, I'd rather be out of Europe altogether than playing the Europa League in February. And I was like, well, I don't like Thursday night football. I like having my Thursday nights where I can go and play a bit of five-a-side or whatever. But from a football club perspective, we needed to be in the Europa League. Liverpool are in the Europa League. They're making money. Like, we needed to be in the Europa League because we needed money for the summer. And not being in the Europa League has probably cost us 30 million quid. Not being in the Champions League has cost us a lot more, but not being in the Europa League has probably cost us 30 million quid. If you go all the way to the semi-final or the final, you make a bit of money there. So, yeah, we've got to be in Europe. Good point about importance of the Champions League football, says Helg. Mark, also, you would think that Sir Jim and the Glazers would understand the importance of really spending in January, but they're all knobheads. How many times have we had that conversation, by the way? How many times have we had the conversation that United, by being proactive in the January transfer window, could actually climb the league and get into the top 4? But we don't like to do it. We're not a club set up to do business in January anymore. Tom Grant, welcome to the Members Club. And Kieran says, I've recently been having discussions over who should have the final say on transfers, manager, director or owners. I'd love to hear your thoughts, says Kieran. Would you take Gallagher in the summer? Love from India. I'd take Conor Gallagher, and yes, I would. If he gets the players on side, we will get Europe, says Robert. But what Europe, Robert? Europa or Champions League? Ronaldo is king, and if he hadn't called out how bad United is at the moment, we wouldn't have 25% change now. I want to see a style of play, says PJ. And exactly. I loved that question last night about the 5 players, by the way. That did really well, didn't it? Loads of people were getting in on that comment. But I feel like we've got another one here from Kieran saying, who should be in charge of, who should have the final say on transfers, manager, director or owners? Well, we're going to talk about Greenwood, actually, in a moment. So this sort of fits in well. Robert McCormack says, Bar City away, every game left is winnable. Well, you're right, Robert. As a Man United fan, every game should be winnable. But I look at it and I go, we've got West Ham at home, we've got Brighton away, we've got Newcastle at home, we've got Chelsea away, we've got Tottenham at home on Sunday, we've got Arsenal at home, we've got Man City away, we've got Villa away, and we've got Liverpool at home. So you've got a mix, really. Definitely. I would take Conor Gallagher. Rouge says this is the best community. It is. Let's do a poll on this one, like Piers Morgan says. It's not the real one, but who should have the final say on transfers? Should have the final say on transfers. Okay. Manager, director of football, CEO. CEO / Ineos. Okay. That's a really good question. Really good question. Now, let's bring Mason Greenwood into this because this works perfectly. So, Mason Greenwood is currently on loan at Getafe. In the summer, allegedly, Ten Hag, John Murta and Richard Arnold agreed that they wanted to bring Mason Greenwood back into the Manchester United squad in the summer to play this season. The backlash from fans and organisations was that's incredible. What are you doing? And United very quickly changed course and loaned him to Getafe and put a statement out saying that they're futures were going to be apart. Man United were looking to, go down a different path to Mason Greenwood, and they would help him find that different path. And that path started off with Getafe and would basically end with him being sold this summer coming up. If Ten Hag had final say on that, all the backlash, everything like that, Mason Greenwood would be playing for Manchester United right now. That's a very extreme example because there's non-footballing reasons why people didn't want Greenwood to play. On Anthony, you're negotiating with Ajax and they say we want 80 million quid. John Murtagh will have had a conversation with Ten Hag and said, do you think 80 million pounds is too much? And Ten Hag will have said, no, let's get him. And we got him. So there's two examples. Third example, we've got a Golden Glove winning goalkeeper. The defence has done really, really well. He's not old. He's still in his prime. I want to replace him by letting him go for free and spending £50 million on Onana. Manager. So there's three examples of the manager having control and what would have happened. Should the manager have control of transfers? No, of course he shouldn't. The manager should be consulted, spoken to, and have a say, but he shouldn't have the final say, because a director of football has to be the plug in the bath to stop all the water running out. He's got to be the barrier to bad decisions. He's got to be accountable. And I think a competent director of football would not have allowed us to spend so much money on Anthony. Not to say we shouldn't have signed Anthony, but not that much money. A competent director of football would not let you go and let David De Gea go for free and then get a replacement for 50 million who's arguably not that much better. So that is why the manager should never have final say. The manager should be part of the situation, but the director of football should have more power, because the director of football can say no when there are bad decisions there. But what a director of football shouldn't do is say, I want to buy Erling Haaland, and then they go and buy you Andy Robertson. Like, you don't want the director of football having too much power anyway. So I think synergy is the main thing here. You need to have a competent director of football with a manager who are in tune with each other, like what happens at Man City, really, where they both have the same footballing vision. There's no point in having a director of football that wants to play Tony Pulis ball and a manager that wants to play Pep ball. So really, you want a relationship. It's like a marriage. But there has to be responsibility, shared responsibility. The manager picks the team, the manager coaches the team, the director of football has the final say on transfers, but you work together for one common goal. And actually, if the manager gets sacked, the director of football needs to be looked at as well, and vice versa. So that's what you want, and United haven't had that for so long. And it's interesting with the poll, actually, because 58% say director of football, 12% say CEO, and 30% say the manager. Look, the CEO should not have any say. The CEO should, if the CEO or Ineos are doing their job, they should just be there to sign the checks. That they shouldn't have any say whatsoever on transfers, because that's when you end up in a Todd Boehly world. That's where you end up in a world where, you've got rich owners playing the world's worst game of Football Manager. You don't want that. You want a competent director of football, which we don't have, would be massive for Manchester United. Morning from Espanyol, says Tom. It's Mexican standoff with Martial, which United should win. Timescales on players returning. So Maguire, Luke Shaw and Ericsson we're expecting back this weekend. Mount, Casemiro and Martinez we're expecting back for the FA Cup game, which is our next game after Spurs. So that's what we're expecting with regards to that. I did promise we would talk about Greenwood in a little bit more depth. So first of all, this has been on the agenda for a couple of days. It's just we've spoken about more interesting things. Ineos' stance, Sir Jim Radcliffe's stance on Mason Greenwood is very, very simple. They will assess it in the summer. There is no indication or desire to... It's not like Sir Jim's walked in and gone, I want Mason Greenwood sold, or I want Mason Greenwood as our starting winger next year. I'm sure he has a private opinion on it, but the stance of Ineos is very much the same as Manchester United. They'll assess the situation in the summer. There's no desire to sell him in January despite there being interest, and there's no desire to bring him back from loan in January despite United not scoring goals. So, yeah, whether that's right or wrong, It's not for us to say. You could sell him in January. There is interest. You could bring him back in January. We aren't scoring goals. So, but United, I mean, look, if you are one of those people that want Mason Greenwood back in the Manchester United side, you've got every right to say, well, why aren't we bringing him back in January? We're not scoring goals. But that's not going to happen. We're not going to sell him either. They'll look at this situation in the summer, and I would imagine they will take into account the same factors that were taken into account last summer. They will test the temperature of the water with United fans, the press, charities, whatever you want to call it. They will, because that's what they did last summer. They will test the water. And if the water is not as hot, then that might force them back towards reintegrating Mason Greenwood. They'll also listen to the manager. And the manager, as we suspect, does want him back. So that will be considered as well. They'll also look at the market and see what people are willing to pay for him, because there is interest. And if somebody's willing to offer decent money for him, then that might make it, whatever headache it is, a little bit easier to just say part ways. They'll also have to take into account their statement from last summer, which basically said they were going to be parting ways. So there are a number of things to be taken into account. My personal opinion doesn't really matter. It's not something I'm interested in polling about at the moment or anything like that, because it really doesn't matter. There will be people in the chat who really, really want him back, and there were people in the back who are sitting on the fence, and there were people who don't. And it doesn't matter. But what I will say is, I can see a scenario where he's back playing for Manchester United. And I said that when they loaned him to Getafe. So I can see that situation, and it wouldn't shock me if that happened. Again, it's going to be another big decision for Ineos to make in their formulative months as controllers of the football side. And I would not take that decision lightly if I was them, because, you don't want to be pissing off United fans, really, do you? But look, they're going to have to make that decision in the summer. Luke Harrison, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. Barrel Shark says, hi, Mark. I think United can't start Rashford and McTominay. If they don't score, they don't offer anything else, meaning we play with 9 players. New format this season ain't there towards European football. What if we get conference football, says Luke. Yeah, I don't really understand what's happening with the Champions League. I really don't understand what's happening with the Champions League at all. There is meant to be a new format, isn't there? But yeah, I don't really understand it. There is talk that there might be a 5th place up for grabs. So yeah, are you going to do an Eastleigh versus Newport watch along on Tuesday, Pete? I'd rather be stuck on the toilet for 2 hours with the shits than watch that. I know we're going to be playing them, but I don't need to watch them. But if you've got nothing else to do on a Tuesday night, crack on. We'll probably have it on while the 8 o'clock show's on, to be honest. That's fine. But yeah, I've got no interest in watching it, please. Career mode is back tomorrow, Hope. If you're interested in my Man United career mode, it's been on a little bit of a sabbatical for a few weeks, but it will be back tomorrow afternoon. OG says, you're copying the overlap with that poll. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Yeah, mate. We've been around a lot longer than the overlap. I don't watch the overlap, and it really isn't breaking news to do a poll on who should have the final say on transfers, considering we've been talking about it for 6 years, which is longer than the overlap existed. So, mate, go and bother somebody else, because you're clearly one of those people in life that is very, very bitter. You've only had 11 days of a new year, and you've already descended into a little bitter hater. Go and get a life. Go and get a life. And anyway, maybe our discussion's better than theirs, or maybe you prefer theirs. I don't know what it is. It's definitely one of those days today. There are a few around, and is there something scientifically proven about the 11th day of January where people have fell off the wagon in relation to getting down the gym or not drinking pop or eating chocolate, and they just wake up on the 11th of January like a complete and utter twat? Madness, absolute madness. And I shouldn't have read it. I shouldn't have read it. I'm an idiot for falling into the trap. If we get MALEN, we're just as stupid as the propaganda to hate Jadon Sancho, says man like Theo. Do you think Erik ten Hag would survive the Conference League? I don't think I'd survive the Conference League. I don't know I don't know about you. I really don't think I could. I don't think I could do the Conference League. The Europa League group stage is depressing. That's where you go to Azerbaijan. Nothing against going to Azerbaijan. They do a great Grand Prix. But in the group stage of the Europa League, you go to places like Azerbaijan. Imagine where you go in the group league, in the group stage of the Conference League. You probably go to Milton Keynes or Luxembourg. You know, that to me would make a horrific season. That would be not the cherry on the cake. That would be the shit on the sick. Vile. I cannot deal with that. I'll just about put up with the Europa League because it's better than nothing. But the Conference League, my God, yeah, it's terrible. It really is. It really is. Anyway, look, fantastic show this morning as always. Don't forget, we'll be back at 2 o'clock live, and we've got football to talk about tonight. We've got the Spurs preview at 8 o'clock tonight, which I'm looking forward to as we get back to some Premier League action. Remember the last time we played in the Premier League, we lost to Forest, and that was in 2023. Yeah, so first game in the Premier League of 2024, and it's Spurs. Thanks everyone for watching. Welcome to the new members. Appreciate the super chats. Thanks everyone who's watching live. Get your comments in if you're not watching live, as always, and make sure to subscribe and smash a like. I'll speak to you a little bit later. Take care. Enjoy your day, evening, afternoon, morning, night, whatever you're doing, because I know people watch from all around the world. Take care. Stay safe. I'll speak to you soon.